Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I get to simplify the overwhelm that often comes along with digital and online marketing. I'm talking to my amazing chiropractic friends, brothers and sisters out there, and natural health practitioners, really. Hey, on today's show, I had a fantastic conversation with a guy by the name of Sam Carlson. I got referred to Sam by a good friend of mine, Chad. Sam is a digital marketer and he has some software that really simplifies Facebook ads. We didn't talk a lot about that. We do a little bit at the end there. We really talked about some of the key understandings that you need to have to understand digital marketing. In fact, Sam has done the maths and he says there's really only two numbers that you need to understand if you want to double your practice in the next 2.5 months. So here's the question. If you're wanting to double your practice, or even if you're wanting to grow your practice, today's episode is going to be really fabulous for you because there's really only two things, and that is, how do we get more of the patients that come to us through the marketing, our Facebook ads, the content we're creating on social media? How do we get more of those people to actually turn up? Here's a bit of a hint. Sam says we only need 42% of those people to turn up. Okay. And then once these people get into our practice, how do we get more of those starting care? And so we really get into the weeds. We get into the tactics about how we make all of this happen. More people turn up and more of them start with care. Plus we give some really good pearls of knowledge, some golden nuggets inside there about how you can have more impact in your community as well. Sam is a hell of a nice guy. I think you'll really love this episode. I did. Let's go meet Sam. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, where we guide natural health and wellness experts through the pitfalls of marketing. Each episode, you'll learn simple, effective, easily actionable, and heart-centered marketing strategies. And here's your host, Angus Pyke.
Sam Carlson, welcome to the show. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. So we started this conversation before and I was riveted. I went, stop, let's record this because this is our podcast episode now. So you and I being able to get together has not been easy over this last 2 weeks as well. Hey, why don't you give our audience a little bit of a background of who you are, what you do, and how you help us, particularly as chiropractors, reach more people?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's funny because we were talking a little bit about my background and what I do and how I got here. And I do digital marketing, I guess, to kind of get the, to very cut straight to the point. I do a lot of lead generation and new patient acquisition and anything converting leads into patients. That's kind of been my, area of expertise for years, for the better part of 5-6 years, something like that. But I didn't necessarily choose this. I was working with a guy who was, helping me, and he said, hey, or I was helping him rather. We were working on his clinic. He said, hey, we've got a lot of clinics that we're working with and they need help. What do you think about learning to consult these doctors and learning our business? And so I jumped into your guys' practice, learned how they operate, and one thing led to another, and I ended up doing full-time lead generation for new patients. So it's kind of what I do, and I love it. I have a lot of background in it now. At this point, 5 years, we're not just starting out anymore. So we've got a good track record and have learned quite a few fun things that hopefully we'll get to share some today.
I'm a big fan of simplifying things. We're going to talk about the two numbers at some stage, that the only two numbers that chiropractors need to know if they want to double their practice. I'm fascinated with that concept there too. But if we think about, for the audience that's listening, there are really only 3 phases to your practice. And this is, the great Dean Jackson, Joe Polish talk about the before phase, the during phase, and the after phase. And many of us obsess about the during phase in terms of how do we nail that report of findings, how to get really great at our kind of daily interactions, our report of findings. And you need to be great at that. You need to have a great product. And we do, as chiropractors, particularly, we have a beautiful product as well. And then there's this before phase of how do we get people into our practice? And man, does that cause some stress for people there too. But not, I guess too also, just know that every business in the world, whether you're a dentist, whether you're a builder, whether you're the local shop down the street there too, this before phase of being able to predictably bring in new business is probably the thing that I think that we need to be as good at marketing what we do as doing what we do. Why do you think this causes such massive overwhelm for chiropractors? You've dealt with this for a long time.
I've thought about that so much. I think most chiropractors went to school thinking, hey, they didn't go to school thinking I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
They went to school thinking, hey, I'm going to help people. And unfortunately, one thing is tied to another. You know, you can't be a great chiropractor or a great anything unless you're great at the business part of it first, you know, because if you're great at the business part of it, you get to help a whole lot more people. And, you know, it's funny. Like you said, I've been doing this long enough to see, I feel like different phases, and there's nothing more exciting than to see a person when they kind of maybe butt up against that enemy, what is marketing and finding new patients. They butt up against that enemy so many times. And then some point, like everything kind of clicks and they're like, oh, okay, this is how I get new patients. And, you know, seeing that is honestly, it is the only reason I continue to do this, because I just had a case study I did with a guy last week, and just seeing what he was able to do in the middle of the pandemic, you know, was just phenomenal and amazing. But it's a hard thing, you know, finding new patients and competing with other people. It's not something you thought that you were going to have to do. You know, you just thought, hey, this is simple. I'm going to go help people. Yeah, and it's not that simple.
And I'm going to go one step further, Sam, because we get told some version of this at university, college, depending on what part of the world you are, you call it different things there too. But we get told some form of, look, if you just help the people, the business will look after itself. Biggest lie we've ever been told, because it's not the case. And you absolutely articulated it really well. We got in there, you know, why did you become a chiropractor? Because I wanted to help people. And not for one moment did we think that there was a whole business that needed to run underneath that. And then in this side of healthcare too, there are these subliminal kind of concepts that if you're helping people and business as well, it then gets a bit sleazy. It kind of crosses these borders of what are you really about? But I want to I'm going to repeat that sentence you said before I wrote it down. If you're great at the business part, you're going to help a lot more people. So for those of you, and I was one of those that got into chiropractic because I just wanted to help people there too, understand that learning this stuff here, it's hand in glove. You can't have one without the other. We need to get great at the business part. And so some of that is managing the business part, our accounting, all those things that are happening. But a big part of that is kind of lead generation, you know, with people coming into the practice. I want to start, because you mentioned to me before we even hit the recording button, that if our practitioners, the ones listening to this, want to double their practice, there's only two numbers that they need to know. They don't even need to be good with these. In one of them, they're going to get an F, and the other, they're going to get a D. Let's start talking about those two numbers, because hopefully if our chiropractors can hear this, then they can go, oh, okay, I don't need to be an A+ student at this to double my practice, particularly with regards to my marketing there. But when we run these numbers, so let's talk about these numbers. How did you come up with these numbers? Let's get into it.
You know, it's funny because I came up with these numbers not too long ago, actually. I just finished writing a book, and it was like right in this process. In fact, I was teaching this course, and I call it New Patient School. Okay. And New Patient School, just because I wanted to like deconstruct the different phases. And this Dr. Andrew Wells, who I was teaching it with, he shared how he used to run his practice. And what he would do is every position, so whether you're the front desk, whether you're a CA, whatever your position is, they're all responsible for a single stat. Okay. Now, it didn't mean that they didn't have other duties and tasks that they would do, but they reported one singular stat. And I was like, man, that's an amazing concept. And so I started looking at all of these protocols and everything that I had been teaching over, 5 years of doing this. I'm like, well, what if I could take these different parts of this process and break them down to one number, one statistic? And in doing that, I really started to find where people were falling off. And when I found when people were falling off, I'm like, well, this is how you fix that. Okay. And so the numbers that we identify in the middle are 42% and 65%. Okay. And so the 42%, let's start with that one. So 42%, that is the percent of new leads that you need to get into your practice to be able to double your practice. So you only, like I said, that's an F. Okay. For anybody who went to school, if you got a 42%, you did not pass the class. In the case of this task, in this particular part, in this class, right? You get an F and you're going to double what your practice is able to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's a big, big deal. And I think also, before I move on to the 65%, the reason I thought that having these numbers would be so powerful and so potentially life-changing, not to, exaggerate, but is because if you had a target to aim for, okay, if you're aiming for the sun, you hit the moon,
yes,
that's okay. Right? And so I felt like if we're going to shoot for this number, this gives us an idea of how we're going to perform down the funnel.
Yeah.
Okay. So that 42% is really, it's a simple thing to do, to hit that, but most people give up before they do the things that will get them there.
But we got to talk about this for a bit, because this is another thing so what Sam is talking about, and I would imagine it's the same regardless of any promotion. So if I did a screening on the weekend and I had, let's keep the numbers really simple for maths, because maths on podcasts can get tricky. And I had 100 people that said, man, this is a really great offer. I'm going to take one of your vouchers and I'm going to come on in. Okay. Yeah. We only need, it would be great. And people expect that if 100 people said, I'm going to come in and see you, but sadly, not everyone is going to. Sometimes people have some bright, shiny object thing going on at that moment. They were excited by the offer. They got busy. They got distracted. They changed their mind. This could be a Facebook ad, particularly, which is what we're going to be talking about a lot today. Is that lots of people tell me, look, I ran my Facebook ad. I got a bunch of leads from it. Again, we'll keep the numbers simple. I said, I had 100 people come from it there too. But 60% of them, 60 of them didn't come in and see me. It was such a waste of my time. What Sam is telling you today, and we'll build upon this, that you only need 42%, 42 out of those 100 to actually get into your practice, and your practice will double. And so we get so used to, in our practice, when somebody rings up and makes an appointment in my practice, the turn-up rate is 99%. And so we think that's just what it will be. And so when it's not that with our Facebook ads, we all of a sudden think this is a waste of time. There is a level of attrition that goes along with this. And our turn-up rate, we do a little bit better than, we get close to sort of 60% with our turn-up rate. And with that, we often have, look, the lowest my return on investment gets to is about 2,500%. Now, if I can put $1 in a vending machine and get, pull out $250 from it, $25 from it, then, it's pretty damn impressive there too. So that's anything else you want to add with that 42%? That's pretty much what you mean, yes?
Yeah, that is what I mean. I think just tactically, and if you were to pull that apart, there's things, if you're not let me say this, if you're not getting that, yes. Like let's say you're hitting 20, 30%. Well, then you need to interject a little bit more urgency, personal touch, some scripting, and some actual person-to-person contact to make those numbers, right?
Well, let's go through those. Can you get into those a little bit more specifically? So if someone's running some ads and you say, I get all these tire kickers, Angus, no one ever turns up from there as well. I'm really wasting my money. What can somebody do to get closer to that 42%? We chatted about some things beforehand, but let's share some strategies and see if we can get some peeps to 42%.
Yeah. So I'll give some tactical approaches and then maybe even a couple of subjective ideas. So tactically, MIT did a study on this, and they found that if you call within 5 minutes, you have a 400% chance or 400% greater chance of converting leads than if you wait past that 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So the urgency, and I know this doesn't make sense to people, like when they hear that, why can't they wait 30 minutes? This is a cold prospect. They're busy. Life is so much faster today than it was when I was a kid. I'm 42 and, I know why this wouldn't make sense, but that is the data. And if you can do it, you're going to crush it. Okay. The second piece of data. Now, this one is really interesting. This is a cultural phenomenon that a lot of us haven't caught up to yet. And we call it a double dial. Okay. Now a double dial, if you call that lead, let's say you're within practice hours, it's, 2:00, whatever, you call that lead and they don't pick up. I hear so often, well, this lead quality isn't great, whatever the case may be. Well, what do you do, Angus? When somebody calls you and you don't recognize the number, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's a telemarketer, and I
Yes.
ain't answering.
Yeah, you screen it. We all
Yes.
screen that.
Yes.
But if that number double dial, so a double dial is they don't pick up, and they don't pick up not because they hate your guts. They don't know who you are.
Yes.
They don't pick up because it's a cultural phenomenon. It's a new thing. But if you call it right back, you're going to double your contact rate just by doing a double dial.
Wow. That makes so sense, because I would do that exactly. Like, I'm thinking of the psychology of that number called, if they call back again. Yeah, I like it.
And
Gang,
what's crazy about that too,
turn the podcast off now. You've just got, this is I love that. I love that. Makes such sense.
and what's funny too, so this is maybe a paradigm shift. You might think before you do the double dial, you might feel hesitant to do that because like, man, this feels aggressive. If you were to pick up that call and somebody, a business that you had opted into, are you going to be upset by them?
No, we have to, they have raised their hand beforehand.
Yes.
They filled out a form that says, I would like to come and see you, Sam, for a chiropractic initial consultation, adjustment, whatever you've offered me. I've said that. I've put my name and details in, and I've pressed enter. So I've at least shown some interest. And if that person is then upset that you followed up with a phone call, gang, that's a crazy person. So don't worry about what they're thinking about you. Crazy people will think crazy things, but that's, I would think if we were calling them 8 or 10 times a day for the next 8 or 10 days, that's aggressive. Pull it back a little bit from there too. But I had a guest on the show earlier on in the year, and he was talking about his Facebook ads and the follow-up. And Jamie dived deep into the statistic. I forget what it was, but it was something outrageous. Like, I feel like it was into the 30s. They would go into like 30 follow-up calls and still get great response from them. So he just told his staff, it's just a matter of keep on calling. They will answer, and they'll make appointments, and they'll end up being patients. But it's just the way that things are with their phones nowadays. It's like, it was a little bit outside my comfort zone there too in terms of pushy, but it was like, it reminded me that I could probably call more often.
The data shows that your 80% of your results happen after the 7th contact. That's actually
7th.
After the 7th.
Yeah.
And so, understand too, that all of these things kind of work together. If you're able to get more people within that 5-minute gap, of course, you're going to convert more people. But if you don't get them, you don't stop at attempt 4 or 5. You got to keep going if you're going to get 80%. 80%. That's a big number.
And so that phone call is just, hey, Sam, it's Angus here from Life Chiropractic. I see that you've just registered interest for our initial consultation there too. Can we set up a time for you? That's what that phone call is, yeah?
We actually do it. We handle it a little bit differently.
Let's do it, dude. How do you do it?
Yeah. So first and foremost, everybody talks about lead quality.
Yes.
Okay. To me, lead quality is actually a little bit of a misnomer. I don't believe in lead quality.
Yes.
Okay. Because lead quality to me means, hey, somebody's excited about opting in, and they're going to just walk in and give you their money. What I believe in is qualified leads.
Right.
Okay. And you said it, you're like people who will raise their hand. All right. So like the process, before I get into the script, the process needs to be a lot more specific than broad. Okay. So if we're talking to people with, sciatica issues or migraines or whatever it is, we need to start with a very qualified question. Okay. So as long as you have that understanding that's where we're starting off the lead generation process, then we can move on to the script. Now, the one thing, do you know Chris Voss? Do you know that name?
FBI
hostage
negotiator dude. Yeah.
Yes. I have been studying sales and scripting for years. Okay. And one of the things that he said that really drove home, the importance of scripting was just to use speech patterns to remove yourself from a subjective box that you're being put into. Let me give a little bit more. Let me articulate that better.
Please do.
All right. As soon as you call up, okay, they don't know you. You're like, hi, Angus, this is Sam with XYZ Clinic. Have you got a minute? You're automatically the salesperson.
Yes.
Okay. And the salesperson, that's like objective number 1 is to shift away from the salesperson. We want to go from a salesperson into a sort of advisor. Okay. Now, when we talk about the difference between an advisor and a salesperson, the big difference in speech patterns is one talks a lot,
yes,
and one listens a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so, without going through my entire script, I wrote a script. It's called The Daily Marketer. And I wrote this about 2 years ago. It's for free. It's part of my book. It's on my YouTube channel. It's for free. I don't charge anything for it, but it's designed to take the quote, low quality leads. So people who have, expressed some interest, but are hesitant. It's designed to take them and position them in a way to where we can start having a conversation about their condition. All right. Now, I'm not saying you need to have 30-minute conversations with these prospects. All right. But you need to follow a script that builds trust, positions yourself as an expert, and accomplishes a couple of objectives. And one of them is the admission of a problem.
Yes.
Okay. So you can keep it concise. And I know a lot of people do that, but I tell you what, the time or the exponential output you will get by shifting the psychology of your scripting will pay huge dividends down the road. So yeah, I mean, we want to follow up with people, but we also want to relate to people and build trust with people. So yeah, we're a little bit more scripted than just getting the appointment. And it may be for some people, if you are a big celebrity or have a lot of credibility in your market, you're going to have to do less of that.
Yeah, got it. I think because when we're running Facebook ads or doing any kind of digital marketing, understandably, the docs want to really leverage their time. And what they're hoping for is this fantasy situation where they can push a button and the ads run, which they can. We'll talk about how that happens a little bit later on there too. And then they don't have to do anything else until that patient is in their initial consultation room. And the fact of the matter is, even though that we're in a digital era there too, the more touch that you can put back into it with those phone calls or, I'll talk about some videos and stuff, which I've touched base on here beforehand, that you can add some kind of human element back into it where we can connect with a human being. These are all things that will really in turn increase your turn up rate. So I've talked about this on the podcast beforehand, but when you have those people that have made an appointment or raised their hand, if you were to shoot just a quick little video, send it to them via text as well, that just says, hey, Sam, I've made a quick video for you. Okay. So, which makes Sam know it's for him. It's not here, I'm sending you a video. And sometimes I even put the word personal. Hey, Sam, I've made a personal video for you here. I just want to let you know what will be happening on our visit. And then I like to use an app on my phone called Loom. It's Loom. You can get the free version. What I like about Loom is that you can record this video selfie style on your phone, and it'll just give you a link at the end. So you don't have to upload it to YouTube, anything like that. The video stays private, and you just cut and paste that link, and then we would text it straight to Sam. When you do this kind of thing, it will massively, it starts to create connection. This is people, we like to do business with people that we like. All else being the same, we like to do business with people that we like. And this is a really likable thing to do. So, we've added some urgency in there. We've added the human element. We've called within 5 minutes. If they haven't done that, we've double dialed. If that hasn't gone, we've kept on that follow up until we've got them on the phone there as well. So that's how we go to our 42%. Anything else you want to add in around the 42%, Sam?
No, I think, there's tactics and things that you can do. I feel like we've talked about those, but the big thing is just because the 65% directly feeds in from the 42%.
Yeah. So let's get into that next number. It's 42% of people showing up from our marketing, whether it be a Facebook ad or anything else that we've done, getting them in the door. And then the other number to the 65% of people doing what next?
Enrolling for care. Yes. So again, that's a D student. D student, you're getting 65% of those people who show up to enroll for care. And what's really interesting, here's the one thing that doctors, chiropractors, physicians, they don't realize they're thinking that is actually keeping them from getting this result. They're thinking that this person who shows up to their practice is the same person who showed up by referral from a friend. Okay. Yep. This is a huge, huge problem. Yep. Okay. The fact that now, here's the biggest reason why. That person who came in on referral has what we call borrowed credibility.
Yes.
Okay. That means somebody gave them a get out of jail free card when it comes to gaining trust. And you just said, hey, trust this person.
Yeah.
Right. Much like you and I are talking. Yes. You know, I reached out to you via a fellow contact and I said, hey, I'd love to get in, learn, get to know you. And I got borrowed credibility from that person, you know? And when a new lead comes in, you don't have that yet. Okay. And if you know that once again, what are you going to be focusing on?
Yep.
VIP treatment.
Yeah.
Trust, friendliness, relatability. Okay. All of the education. Okay. All of these things are really big and they're in a sense chronological too. You got to build trust before you can educate. If you start trying to educate before you've built trust, you're selling.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that's 65%. Now, one of the things I've heard a lot of people talk about pre-framing, right?
Yes.
Pre-framing is basically the whole idea of saying, hey, here's what's going to happen. Just so there's no boogeyman, like hiding around the corner. Pre-framing is great because you say, hey, Angus, we're excited that you're here today. Here's what's going to happen. Our goal today is XYZ.
Yes.
Okay. And as we do that, if you have questions, we're going to answer those. And you just tell them what's going to happen.
Yes.
And by doing this, all of your communication patterns, your language, everything, the treatment, the feeling, everything is going to remove you again from that sales paradigm that they're used to entering into. Because that's your enemy. That's the thing you don't know you're fighting.
Yes.
And so really 65%, I know to most doctors, I hear this all the time. Oh, well, we enroll 90% of people that come in here. Just if they come in here, they're getting enrolled.
Yes.
If they're leads that don't know you, they're not.
Yes. And that's the difference again that we go back to in the same way I said that when a normal person, in inverted commas, calls our practice, 99% of those people turn up and start care. We're used to that kind of happening. It's a given, but when we're dealing with somebody that's come from an advertisement, some marketing, that's not the case, and that's okay. My dear friend Russ Rosen talks about in the initial consultation, you want somebody to go sitting there, and you want them to their shoulders from shrug to go, and that's here's what's going to happen when we let people and gang. We do a version of here's what's going to happen even for our referred patients. And you see them just sit back and relax because there's a level of anguish when we're with any healthcare provider. Even if you've been given the strongest referral that there is that, we're scared. Am I going to be poked and prodded? Is today going to hurt? What's going to go on? And am I going to be confused? Am I going to have an opportunity to tell my story? When we can put somebody at ease and get them out of that kind of reptilian fight, flight, sitting back so we can connect and do all of those kind of things, that it makes perfect sense. I want to touch base back on that, something that you said before, which I think is a really, really important point. And you mentioned that we can't begin to educate somebody until we can build trust first. And this is, as doctors, we want to go straight into this. We want to go straight into telling them, here's what's going with the spine, this and that. And that's not the first question. I think it was Frank Kern talked about 3 questions. And if you think about this, gang, whenever anybody's perhaps consuming your social media content on your website, and when people are new in your practice, they're asking themselves 3 questions. They're saying, and these first 2 are in similar sort of order. Do I trust you, first of all? Do you understand me? Do you know what it's like to be me? I'm bringing my child in. My baby hasn't slept for the last 12 weeks because they've had ear infections, or maybe I'm having difficulty at work because I've got this searing freaking sciatica and I'm worried whether I'm going to be able to look after my family. Or maybe I've had a migraine headaches. Do you really understand what it's like to be me? Now, when you can answer those 2 questions and address those of that they feel understood and they feel trust, the education doesn't matter. Really, all you need to say to them is, I can help. Let's get started. Lie on the table. You need to come and see me twice a week for the next 12 weeks. And they will say yes. But we go so deep on education before building trust and having the person feel understood that we either overwhelm people, we don't connect with them. And it's why you're not having those high kind of conversion rates anyway. So anything that you'd add to that at all, Sam? That was a rant I went on there. Sorry about that, buddy.
No, I think it was well said. I think just the big distinction is, when you talk to people, do you feel like you're giving a sales pitch? Do you feel like every single time there's so much effort in like aggressively saying, hey, here's what we do, this is why we're so great? Or do you feel like you sit back, you listen, and you answer questions, and you mirror people, and you deep dive their problems? And by doing that, you're understanding them, because one of those people is a salesman and one of those people is an advisor. Okay. And salespeople sell, advisors advise.
Yeah.
Okay. And the more you can get into that position of advisement, the easier everything down the line works. It's just, it's seamless. It turns into, recommendations. And they're like, oh, well, I guess that's what it's going to take. Like you said, there's no education involved. I'm going to need to see you. This is what it's going to take. Well, that's an expert. They know.
And it makes sense, because we make decisions emotionally and we'll justify them with logic. The little bit of education, I'll use that to kind of justify it. But again, the social psychologists will tell us again and again that we make decisions emotionally, which will be basically because of this. I like Sam. I trust him. I'll do what he tells me. Like, that's it. Now, provided what you tell me makes some basic sense as well for my educated brain, I'm not going to turn it off completely. Provided that there is some logic to it, then I'm going to kind of move forwards from there. So, we've gone from, all right, we've got to get 42% of the people that raise their hand to come and see us. Those people that end up inside of our practice, we want 65% of those to actually start care. And, the key to doing that really is what you said beforehand is, do I care? Do I connect? If I feel like I'm doing a sales pitch, you probably are. So you should stop it.
Right.
Get back to thinking about the person in front of you. And if we're doing those two numbers week in and week out, your maths came to do that for long enough and your practice will double. Yeah.
It will double in 2.5 months.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful. And what the other thing is, that the really crazy thing is, lead cost stops being is not the issue. It more comes to lead volume. You almost start saying, hey man, I mean, if I'm paying $20 for a lead, with my math, that means you'll get a patient for $89.
Yes.
Okay. If you pay $50, it's only $184 for a patient to acquire a patient.
Yeah.
Right. So lead cost almost becomes irrelevant. It really comes down to the gap. If you can nail down the soft skills as well as the tactical approach in the gap, you can double it in 2.5 months.
Yeah. And so this is another business component that I want to remind our listeners about there too, is the idea of a lead loss or going a little bit negative in the beginning, because you might be thinking, oh my God, it's going to cost me $184 for a patient. Like, that would be some of our newer grads or people who are newer to marketing, that might be really quite overwhelming. In my early days, I'm like, that's a lot to spend. What we have to think about is, the lifetime value of the patient. And if that person is going to come in, and let's just keep it really simple and say, look, that person comes in 10 or 12 times. And again, it's $60 an adjustment. They come in 10 times, it's $600. So you're not going to get your money back immediately. They spend 184 and then maybe over the next, whatever it is, 6 or 8 weeks. But when we have this consistently going along, and other episodes, we talk about how your retention should be not 10, but 100. This is lifetime benefit. Like, how long should somebody get their teeth checked for? Ever. Ever. Same with your spine there too. And if you do a really beautiful job of caring for your peeps, then they will do that as well. So understanding that, like anything, we invest at the front and then the return comes as we move forwards, that we need to be able to carry this. Is there anything else that you want to add to that concept of kind of a lead loss to begin with that would kind of help people, or that you find that docs struggle with?
The only thing I would say, just an idea, is to also insert this idea that those results compound over time.
Yes.
And what I mean is, so let's say month 1, to keep math easy, you get 100 leads. Okay. And 42, you fulfill on the whole thing. 42 show up, that whole thing. Well, what about the, 58? What about the 58? Well, that number actually over time builds. So after 6 months, you've got 350 or whatever that number is. Okay. those people are primed for re-engagement. Those people, they didn't not convert because they weren't a fit. They didn't convert because most of them, timing wasn't it. Timing wasn't right. Okay. These are people with chronic conditions.
Yep.
Okay. They learn to justify and rationalize them. And if you do it right, we say do reactivation campaigns, which is actual patient stuff, every 60 days.
Yes.
Well, again, a year later, 2 years later, all of these numbers really start to compound. So what you're paying for a patient up front in the first 30, 60, 90 days feels like more, but it feels like a whole lot less as you compound those results down the line.
Yeah. And so, if the 58% of people who didn't come in, some of those are a no, but a lot of them are a no, not yet.
Yes.
That for whatever reason. And in the same way that, when Sam and I first kind of hooked up, we were messaging back and forwards 2 weeks ago, I went AWOL for 2 weeks, and Sam could have had a conversation in his mind of, oh man, that Angus is a jerk. He's not got back to me. Is he not interested? That kind of stuff there too. And the truth of the matter was I was just really busy. I was looking forward to chatting with Sam, and it was just not yet that time. And so Sam did a really great thing is he followed back up with a message this morning, and I went, thank you so much for that, Sam. Let's chat. So understanding that there are no, not yet. So this leads us, as people are starting to kind of get this concept like, okay, I got it. The maths is starting to make some sense. So now what I need to do is start to get the front end of that going on. Your area of expertise is really in running Facebook ads. And people tell me Facebook ads don't work anymore. I'm like, well, maybe you haven't understood the numbers like we've talked about them before. And along with everything, it's, are you doing them right? They can be difficult to run. You have a whole way of running them, like literally a push button way of running Facebook ads, where instead of having to employ an expensive agency or instead of having to do it yourself, you can open up this program, push a button, say, I want to run a migraine program. It'll choose the audience. It'll run the ads for you. Like all the copy is there that has been tested, and we know that it works around the world, Australia, UK, US, Canada, there too. And put your budget in. You don't have to worry about where the ad is going to do, demographics, all that's done in the background. Like, first of all, congratulations on being able to do that. I've not seen anybody that's been able to do that. You walked me through the software this morning. I was like, that's amazing there too. So how did that all come about that you built all of that?
It's I'm not a developer. In fact, I'm not that nerdy. But we happen to have a case study published by Facebook. Facebook did a case study on our agency on some results we were getting for a chiropractor in the state of Washington. And they published that on Facebook Business. And this venture capital firm out of the East Coast in the United States found that. They said, hey, you guys look like you know what you're doing. We want some consulting. And that was in early 2019.
Yes.
And so we consulted with them for about a year. And it was ready to go by the end of that year. And we were using it. And my agency were really excited because, man, this thing could make us so much more efficient, reduce in costs and a lot of things. It was really great. But then 2020 hits and, they say, well, we're a venture capital firm and we have money going in other places and it's not going to go to this anymore.
Yeah.
So my partner and I said, well, we'd like to purchase that. And in purchasing that, we were able to transition away from doing a done for you service into a do-it-yourself software. And so we helped build it, not a developer, but in concept of what it needed to do. And today it allows clinics like any private practice, anybody whose currency is new patients. Okay. And we started and integrated in chiropractic clinics. Okay. Anybody who does that, it allows them to run their own campaigns. And we say with just 3 clicks. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat.
It's a great mix because sometimes we get stuck in the middle. I have chiropractors coming to me that have been in relationships with agencies beforehand. And the fact that they're with me means it's either gone south for one of many reasons there too. And then there's that hurdle of, man, I've got to learn to do this myself. And you're going to need to learn some new things. If you are, look, it's not, I'm telling you, it ain't rocket science to run it. But for some people, they're just not up for that and they don't need to. And I've not seen a bridge in the middle of Somebody that comes in and there's a dashboard in front of you and it literally is 3 clicks, migraine campaign. Okay, what is my budget? Where do I want the thank you page to be? You're not setting up landing pages, any of those kind of things there. We go through, or Sam goes through a lead generation form. Facebook does all of that for you. The copy is there, all those kind of things there. So there's a little bit of setup time, effort, and energy that needs to kind of go in to get their accounts linked up. But I got to imagine that's pretty quick, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not long. It takes about an hour.
Yeah. So, yeah, fabulous. How long have you been running this kind of platform for?
It was funny because the pandemic makes everybody think differently about their businesses.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. It made that venture capital firm think differently about our business. It made us think differently about our business. Yeah. And we were approached by a doc, and he said, well, why don't you just make this so we could do it?
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm like, could we do that?
Mm.
And Jacob, he's like, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. And so we built it. And I think we launched it in the beginning of March-ish of 2020.
Yeah.
And, it started out kind of, grassroots and boots on the ground. And the first 6 months were touch and go and whatever. But today we've got over 130 users and it's growing all the time. And we've got over 21 different niches. So that's chronic pain. The majority of those, probably 90%, are chronic pain. So whether that's, sciatica issues or knee issues or migraines, whatever. And a compiled amount of about 150 different offers right now. So it's fast and furious for sure. It's been a fun ride, but yeah, it's been very, people love it. They do great with it. Like anything else, it's awkward at first, but as soon as we take you through the onboarding that we do, most people feel very confident to get in there and launch their own campaigns like a pro.
Yeah. I gotta, when Sam says it's awkward, gang, it's not. Like he's being incredibly humble there too. I've seen the platform. It really is click 3 buttons. Once it's all set up, and there's, great support that you'll get from Sam and his team there too. I want to just sum things up. For so many of your life is very different. If you have a predictable flow of new patients coming in there, and you understand how to make sure those patients turn up at your practice, Sam and I have given a lot of really just hands-on tactical strategies. Then how to go about getting those patients to start care. And again, the tactics that we talked about today would make sense, whether that be a referral patient or not. Be positioning yourself as the trusted advisor rather than as the salesperson. If you feel like you're selling, you probably are. That's not what somebody is looking for. And then, gang, anybody that tells you that Facebook ads don't work just doesn't know how to work them. I put together some case studies just recently of results that I've been getting this year. The lowest return any of my clients have had from them, is over 1,000%. Actually, that's a lie. It was just under 1,000. I think somebody got kind of high 800% from there too. Now, it does mean some backup work needs to be done beforehand. Sam has done a lot of that for you there too. So I want to encourage a lot of you to check out Sam's stuff there too. And I'm going to pop in there too. So Sam, tell us just briefly about the book that you've written and then where peeps can perhaps find the book. And then I want to send them the link to the sales script that you kind of talked about before as well. Yeah. But tell us about the book.
Yeah. So the book is called New Patient School, the guide for converting more leads into patients.
Yeah. Nice.
And that seemed like that was my area of expertise. That's what I have been consulting on, teaching on. And I didn't write it all at once. I've written the protocols and all the stuff over years of doing this. It's not a long book, but I made it not long on purpose. I think the book is 70 some pages. So it's not, I don't even know if that's a book, but it's bound. So, but it's very tactical.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so if you want a printed version, you can go to mypatientstream.com/book.
Yes.
And you can get it there. There's also those numbers that we talked about. There's a simulator, a practice simulator below. And you can download that right away and start using that as well.
Yeah, nice, bud. Where's the best spot for the gang to follow up with you? What are your socials? What's the website? Where do they find out more about this?
Yeah, so the website is mypatientstream.com.
Yep.
Okay. And when you go there, there's two primary calls to action. The one that makes the most sense is set up a demo.
Yep.
Right. And as we grow this, again, 130 users right now, I've talked to each one of those 130 users as we've grown. And so you're not going to get on with anybody else, at least for the next year, except for me.
Yeah.
And so you'll schedule a demo with me. I'll get on. We'll look at your practice. I'll show you how Patient Stream fits your practice. And then if it makes sense, then you can decide, if that's right for you or not.
Yeah. Beautiful. Buddy, thanks so much for chatting today. It's fantastic. I've found another friend. That's always a good thing as well. I look forward to seeing how this continues to grow and expand. You're going to help a lot of chiropractors reach a lot more people, which basically builds better and healthier communities. And that excites the heck out of me as well. So, mate, thank you so much for all that you do and for sharing so openly and generously today.
Yeah. Thanks, Angus. I love being here and appreciate you having me.
Yeah. See you real soon, mate. Take care. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.